Hello and welcome to Conversations from the Heart. My name is Danielle Schreck and I'll be your host. Today I have a very special guest with us, Chris Kauler. Chris, I want to welcome you. I appreciate you being here. It's such an honor to have you on my show. Could you, for those who don't know anything about you, give them a little insight as to your background and how it is we know each other?
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. I really appreciate you having me on the show here. I know we recently connected via an Instagram post that I had made regarding the subject we're going to talk about. But my background is I do real estate investment and kind of been in the real estate world pretty much my whole life in sales. But we had met previously through a sales organization and became friends, and we've stayed in touch the whole time. And I saw what you were doing with your book, and that with the book you and your friends have created, and it's really cool. And recently been dealing with going through some different challenges myself regarding relationships and experiences around that, and so we connected and we had a great conversation about that. So yeah, I'm excited to hear what we're going to talk about.
Well, absolutely. And you know what's really great about, and this is what I love about internet, is people can stay in touch and you can see their evolution of growth through social media, especially if you've been following or, friends for quite a bit. And one of the things that stood out about Chris is I've seen him go through a lot of ups and downs. And I really admire someone who could push through hardships and then rise above them and grow and always try to be your best self and move forward. And it's, to me, leadership, it's not everyone's going to have all the right answers, but it's really amazing to see how much you've transformed within this last year, because I know you've been through quite a bit. And
Mhm.
I wanted to kind of share with the men here, because I'm always talking about the divine feminine, and I'm definitely about supporting the masculine and the feminine energy. And what stood out recently about Chris's post is he had posted a video about men needing to be under a little bit of pressure of being like a certain, the right rhythm at the right time, and to kind of connect with the woman that she's going to feel so deeply, because we all are looking for the same thing. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to have that connection on a soul level, at least those who are a little bit more deeper. um,
Yeah.
However, in some cases not everyone's for you, and I was kind of sharing that with Chris before. And when you find that spark and that connection with somebody, you really want to go naturally and be in the flow. And so I feel like it happens. However, it does put a lot of pressure on men. But where things can get a little sticky is that, depending on where the trajectory of the relationship goes, a man could feel maybe there's not enough support, or maybe he feels misunderstood because there's a mismatch in energy. She's starting to feel a certain way versus what he's feeling. And
Mhm.
so that post, Chris, like really stood out to me, because like I was telling you before, I have a friend that's going through something similar. And I thought, well, what can I do for that person? Well, I could just support them in the way that they speak their truth to me, and then back off and let life and natural organic way of things happen.
Mhm.
And it just kind of spilled into this like amazing topic. And so I
Yeah.
wanted to bring you here today to just kind of hear your perspective, because I know that right now it's such a pivotal moment of women and men stepping into their energy, their frequency, their leadership role. There's a huge change going on in this world, and we need, as a society, to support one another. And with that being said, and all the work that you've been doing, could you maybe share with us, a little bit of your testimony and what it is you've been through? Because I know you've been dealing with a lot with the child case. I know the custody battle, and it's been really hard for you.
Yeah, I'll speak a little bit about it. It's still ongoing, so there's not. I can't talk about everything, but I'll speak a little bit about it. But basically, I got married not too long ago, and we had a great relationship. We were actually friends for a few years prior, and things got a little rocky. She got pregnant, and then we got married. And as you and I were a little discussing a little bit before we started here, is things when you get married, there tends to be something that happens, and I didn't really realize this, and unfortunately, I didn't really think to read any books on it before or anything like that. Like you said, we want things to flow naturally, and they kind of were. And then all of a sudden, you get married, and a lot of your traumas and things that you've experienced in the past relationships, the way you grew up, and all those things, all of a sudden, like there's this energy that just starts to change, and you really just you don't say anything. And I don't want to make anybody wrong here for the situations that we've been through. But we were clashing a lot. Like you said, the energy was off. And second, I want to it ended up resulting in her leaving with my son. And now we're going through a case, and it's been really hard. It was really tough. It wasn't what I wanted. I believe in the sanctity of marriage personally, and I think it's really important and working through. And but one thing that I think I opened up to you about before is it caused me to go through this self process, which when you and I connected a long time ago, I think, gosh, I don't know, 8 years ago or something at least. And man, how quickly time has moved, right? We were a lot younger back then. Yeah, we're still young, yeah. But we're one of the things that have you and I have kind of been around the self-development industry. Yeah. And I really love what you're doing with the divine feminine. I think that's really important. A lot of women need this as well, and looking into it. And one of the challenges, I think, in our world today, and the negativity that's out there, and the fast-paced thing that's happening in the world is, we're all looking for instant gratification. And rather than sticking something out and working on ourselves and focusing it, we're just looking for that that Hollywood moment, if you will, and the happily ever after. And with social media and Instagram, this is all we see. Nobody puts their worst foot forward on social media,
right?
So the energy started to shift, and things started to get challenging. And when I was alone in the house that we had gotten together, and sitting there and dealing with my own challenges, I started to see myself creep into some old bad coping behaviors. And I'll share, I did that through drugs and alcohol, and previously other women. And so not while I was in a relationship, but there, prior when I was single, that's how I would cope with however I was feeling, mm-hmm. And I would seek those things out. And I think many men do this. And I would go out drinking with the boys or what have you, but then the next thing you know, it's 4 or 5 in the morning, and I'm still drinking, and it's not as fun as when it started, and so that was one of the things that I used to cope. And I found myself after a few weeks just being so unhappy with myself. I remember specifically I was drinking just so I could go to sleep, because I had been up on some uppers, and I decided that this just wasn't the answer anymore. And I needed to do something different. So what I did is I decided to get completely sober and go into join a church. That's what was right for me. And there's a lot of different things that are out there for everybody else. But it made a lot of sense. And through that, I was led to a recovery program to start working on myself. And it's just been incredible. I started working out. I started eating healthier. And I found myself, what I realized is that in my relationship, I lost myself. I stopped hanging out with my friends. And a lot of men do this. We become very attached with our woman, and they become our confidant, and they can become our best friend. They become everything for us. And whereas I think you and I were discussing before, women are usually a little bit better at keeping outside relationships outside of the relationship, and we're men, and we think this is the answer. But what's funny is usually, and you can speak to this better, from a woman's perspective, but usually what attracts a woman to us in the first place is that we have all those other things, and then all of a sudden we kind of lose ourselves within that relationship. And I started to become happier with myself, and I'm still on my journey, but yeah, things are improving, I'm smiling. I've lost a lot of weight, and I'm just a lot happier
I've seen the
in my
shift,
place today.
Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, really. I know
So,
when you made that post, and then I've been kind of like, I like to follow, and I look and I'm like, wow, he's doing the work. And I think that's the bottom line. It's like we make mistakes, yes, but do we need to hold people constantly like that's who they are indefinitely? No. People, if they choose to do so and they want to do the work and they're like, hey, I don't want to be this version of myself, and I got triggered, and this is what's going on. What is this about? And
mhm.
honestly, that's why I'm personally drawn to holistic healing, because there's so many different type of modalities that could help you with your triggers. There's somatic healing, quantum healing, hypnosis, past life regression, Reiki. I mean, the list literally goes on and on. But at the end of the day, we are a mind, body, and spirit. And unfortunately, when you completely surrender yourself to because I think a lot of us have a lot of programming, as I'm sure you're
Yeah.
aware. And so
Yeah.
as you're pulling back the onions and the layers while you're in the relationship, if you don't have a foundation or strength in knowing who you are, or maybe an opportunity to have had a little bit of that singleness, so to speak, so you can explore, I feel like you and people, and I've gone through this myself, can easily get pulled into a direction where you're learning through the relationship, and then the relationship struggles. But it doesn't
Mhm.
have to be that way. If we come to a place, which I really like, where society is heading in this respect, and especially in the spiritual community, is
Yeah.
where we're looking to have that connection again with everyone. But there's like this thing that I'm seeing is there's a bit of a growth and the rise of the divine feminine, but we can't do it without you guys. We need the divine masculine to come on board. And when I saw that post, it literally kind of, it broke my heart a little bit, because I thought, God, this is like sad. Like, men need support too. And I, as an empathetic person, was like, man, I feel for that guy. I feel for Chris. I feel for my friend. I feel people that are going through this. And what could we do as a society and women or just everyone in general, to support these people? And it's sometimes just listening to what they have to say, so you can say, like, if they're going to take action with the advice that provide, and you can come to your own conclusion. It's not to say that what I'm saying is right or wrong. It's a platform for you to grow. And
Mhm.
one of the things I'm noticing is there's this new thing where men are creating these like platforms where they can create a brotherhood. And I really feel like, while seeing you grow and go through this, I could see you, being that you've gone through hell and back, being like that type of leader for men, to help them step into that divine masculine role and be the leader and the man of the house, or whatever you want to call it. And you can do it through church, like what the program that you're going through. And I'm kind of curious, because we were talking a little bit about like relationships the last time on Instagram, about the recovery, and there's different types of addicts, and I thought that's fascinating. I never heard of that before. In that program itself, what is it about the program that's kind of helping you with your relationship personally? Because for me, I feel like that's a very vulnerable topic, but I really appreciated that you shared that, because I would have never known if you didn't tell me that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And one of the reasons I did share is because, like you were saying, to just kind of recap, is like a lot of men, we're taught to, like, we've all heard the term like man up,
Yeah.
right? Like, we're taught to really suppress our feelings from a very young age. Like, we're usually more rambunctious. We're usually, we grew up in the ADD generation,
Yeah.
so a lot of my friends growing up, they were given, like, one thing that I love about what you're doing with holistic healing and all of that, and working in the divine feminine, and is that the world's answer is here's a pill,
Right.
and man up and suppress your feelings and don't deal with them. And what's become of that is, there's a lot of darkness in the world. There's a lot of broken families. There's a lot of broken people, and we're all just going around trying to date each other, but we haven't really dealt with our issues,
Right.
and sometimes, you make this great connection with somebody, and you really deal with it, and you really feel it, and everything's great. And then, like I said before, then things start to get real, and these traumas come out, and we don't know how to deal with that with each other either. We don't know how to give each other space, and we don't know how to do those things. So what we end up doing is, going into that. So as far as the recovery program, what I really love about it is it has a spiritual aspect to it. So it is through my church. So I am a Christian. So that's what I believe in. But depending on what's right for you, like I was saying before, is you just have to find out what's right for you. But the important part, just like you said, is to seek out something. It's really great. There is this movement within men that are probably have either gone through a lot of things like I've been going through, or different things, and seeking out and creating these groups. And one of the things, like just from a man's perspective, which is the only one I know, but women tend to seek these things out a lot better. They process things, as we were talking before. Like when you get out of a relationship, a woman's likely already processed it while she was still in the relationship. And in most cases, right? So when she gets out of it, there's probably still a little bit of separation and processing going. But a man usually doesn't do that until really like 3 to 6 months later, just from the stuff that I've been learning. And what happens is we get this idea has really been taught to us of like, being in a relationship is a suppressive manner, rather than a freeing manner. It's like self-discipline sounds so scary, because it sounds like you can't be free, but really you get a lot of freedom out of being self-disciplined. One of the things that I started doing not too long ago was making my bed in the morning. And one of those things that making your bed does is, you start the day with a win. Like nobody can stop you from doing that. You might trip over the bedpost, but but as far as the recovery program goes, they dive in really deep. It's not very surface level, and because of the spiritual aspect, you really start to talk about things, and people feel welcome more to share, because it's not just about you. It's about in this case God, or the universe, or whatever you want to call it. But there is something to be said about that. There's a lot of studies out there that anybody that practices something spiritually is usually a lot happier in their own life, because it's not just all about them. If we end up in a situation where we're if there is nothing else, then what does life mean? And it really has to be beyond us and our own selfish reasons, which is a lot of what I've been learning. But one of my mentors in the program, he talks about, what a lot of people try to do is like when they first go through recovery, whether it be love addiction, porn addiction, codependency, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, any of these things, and I was surprised to see how many of them I fall into.
Awakening. Oh goodness.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. They have this questionnaire throughout the workbook that I'm going through, and I was like, yes. Oh no.
Your heart just sinks. You're like, I feel vulnerable and attacked.
Yeah, totally, right. And that's one of the hardest things for us to do, is to get vulnerable. But one of the things he talks about is, at least from an addict's perspective, and I think a lot of us do this, is like we try to stay away from the bad thing, right? Like if you've been hurt from relationships in the past, right? Since that's kind of the discussion that we've been talking about, is a lot of what people do is they self-sabotage, and they sabotage relationships they're getting into just to stay away, because they don't want to be hurt again, is really what it ultimately comes down to. And it's a fear driven rather than a positive driven aspect. And so he's like, oh, but it's not, the key isn't just to stay away from the bad thing. That's the easy part. You know what I mean? Like it was easy for me to decide to get sober, and not go out and drinking with my friends and doing drugs or any of those kinds of things. That actually was the easy part. It was when I had to become vulnerable and start to look inward instead of pointing fingers at other people, and realize like I'm capable of hurting people too.
Yep. Yeah, making that change, or making the decision to take ownership of what you think, feel, and say to people, and even to yourself above all. Because I really feel it's it's really important to have some time where you could really work on yourself. And not everyone gets that opportunity, because we do have situations where some people might jump into a relationship at a young age and be together for quite a while, and then things end and you're just like, who am I? And unfortunately, like you were saying
Absolutely.
before, it's pretty heavy, and this stuff's not easy. And that was another thing. Like, I feel like, I'm so happy that you're sharing that part of you so openly, because to me, that is vulnerability, number one. Number two, it allows you to be put in a position where people that people that want to support you, that don't know that they can reach out, say, hey, I like, oh my God, like, so sorry you're going through that, or how can I, whatever. And that's part of, being a person that's, there are people out there that aren't a little bit maybe ahead, not to say that they're in a different place than you are. And so maybe they have the energy they can give to you to say, hey, listen, if you need anything, let me know, because that's what we do. It's the whole point, is to be connected
Right.
with our brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then the brotherhood is like what I was saying, so the fact that you're putting yourself out there, it's going to open you up to so many opportunities to have that support. And one of the things that Chris and I were talking about before we got started was, a lot of this information and support cannot even be found at Barnes Noble, because
Yeah.
I'm looking for answers, and
Yeah.
there's like a whole bunch of books for women. But what did that feel like for you, Chris? Because I know that you've made choices, and you're doing your best to move forward and learn and grow through that. And I feel like it just makes you even more of a bigger person. However, in the process of needing that support, and wanting to be seen in the correct light, and then going and saying, like, I'm doing what it takes, but why isn't this here for me? What does that feel like from your perspective of wanting to do the work and not having it?
Yeah. That's a great question. It's really hard. It makes it really difficult, especially when you're seeking for answers and there's nowhere to find them. Now, thankfully for the internet, there's stuff out there, and as we were speaking to before, there's more and more men talking about this, which is one of the reasons I started talking about it. Is I knew that I wasn't the only one going through challenges, and just like you said, there was you had said that there was there's not information out there, but there's also sorry, I lost train of thought here. But there's also so the way it makes me feel, I'll just kind of circle back to that, and then if it comes to me, I'll speak to it. But basically, it's really hard. It's really difficult. Like, as we were talking before, I was at the bookstore a couple weeks ago. I was gathering stuff regarding my case, and so I was having to go through a lot of old messages and old things, and I'll speak to two different things on that subject. Number one, because I've been going through this journey, I was able to look at some of the things that I have done. I can't speak for the other person, I can't speak for her, nor do I want to, but what I can speak for is the things that I've said and the things that I've done, and good and bad, and just really having a new perspective. I hadn't looked at it in months, and being able to really say, like, wow, like, I don't even connect with that person that I was being at the time,
Yeah.
and really just realizing, like, man, I totally would have done this differently. And although I can't go back and change that, but I can, bring that into the future,
Right.
whatever that looks like, and not trying to control that situation, but really, like, understanding, like, okay, when this happens, don't react in this way. That's not a good thing. One of the challenges that I've struggled with throughout my life is wanting to control situations in a manner of having to deal with it right now,
Okay.
and like when there's a challenge that arises, like, I have to talk about it right now, or I just lose it. You know what I mean? And like and it can come across very scary for people, and it because it is, it's an unhealthy way to deal with problems, because you're not always in the right mindset and you haven't actually gathered and thought about it. And so I've really learned patience through this process, and that's something that's helped me. And the second thing is, going through the bookstore. I started, and because I had that rough time, I was looking, I was searching, and I found there's plenty of self-development books out there, and as you and I were talking before, like we know that, and we've read a lot of them, and things like that. And there's a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now, I've done and applied before, but and now it's come in a different light, in a different way. And you, they speak to you in different ways when you're in those scenarios. But one of the things that has come out of it is, I'm looking and I go to the self-help, but there's nothing for men on divorce or child custody cases or any of that. I go to the relationship section and there's nothing, not one book on how to deal with a breakup for men. And and there is stuff out there, like online, but there's few and far between. And I saw rows and rows for women, and it just really speaks to what's going on in society, for this toxic masculinity, and really like really, I don't know how to describe it, for so lack of a better term, this attack on men, and they're hurting. I just came back from a men's conference. We did 3 days camping, and there was speakers, and it was specifically designed for men. And there was 2,700 of us. And let me tell you, I won't share their stories because they're personal to them, but man, men are hurting, and there's a lot of pain out there, and most of us are taught to suppress our feelings and push them down, and to man up, and to do all those things, as I said before. And we need those brothers. I think one of the things that women can do is encourage men to seek their brothers. Many times I've dated or been with a woman, they have put my brothers down, and I haven't always kept the best company. So, that's not always
I was gonna say comment on that.
yeah. It has to be healthy relationships. So encourage them in a healthy manner. You can't, like, the more you, and one of the things that I know I've made the mistake of in the past as well is like coming from a complaining or nagging nature. And maybe you don't mean to, because I know that wasn't my intention, but after looking back, like, it definitely was doing that, so coming from an encouraging aspect of maybe, bring them to a different social event that they've never been to, or bring them around. And if, in that case, if they haven't, if they don't really, but they have to be willing at the same time. And, one of the things that's really helped me is I was willing. And I was willing to change. I was willing to look in the mirror. Michael Jackson has that song, Man in the Mirror. And the best thing that we can do is take responsibility. But yeah, so that's.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I'm going on a tangent here. But...
No, I love it. It's just funny because you're talking and my mind's like going in 500.
Yeah, feel free to interrupt me.
And it's because I'm excited to hear your perspective. And I just want to, there's just not enough time to like ask all the questions, because as quickly as you're talking, they're flying in and flying out.
Yeah.
But I feel like, kind of piggyback off of what you were just talking about with the nagging, or like maybe how we approach it. I feel like, so if there was harmony in the relationship, generally speaking, communication is open and fluid, and a person can say, hey, listen, like, and you could talk about your core values and what's important to you and what your boundaries are and what you're willing to do and not do. And I feel like once you establish that, there should be, hands down, no reason why someone doesn't say like, hey babe, like, you've been working really hard, why don't you go out with the boys, or like do something fun, because that person will know who you're going to be hanging out with, what they're like, and there's no fear or insecurity, and there's a feeling of freedom, and it gives a person peace of mind, I feel, if they are both very well aware of the people they surround themselves with. But you also have to understand too, like, not everyone's going to be where you're at per se. So like,
absolutely,
if you're the leader in the friend zone, the friends that you're with, like your brotherhood, then the person you're with ought to know like what your role is, and if there's that trust and they know how you carry yourself, there really shouldn't be an issue. But either way, I feel like, the whole brotherhood, I don't know if it's because of the people that I follow, but I'm just so happy and I'm so inspired to see people, putting themselves out there and saying, hey, this is what I've been through. It's really heavy. It's dark. Men are in a lot of pain. Women have been in pain too. Yes, there's been a lot going on, but it's so important that we rise together. And you can go about it through religion or, different ways of spirituality. But the bottom line is starting to learn our programs and how we were raised, and our triggers. And I like how you, I don't know what it was you said earlier, but you had mentioned, I think it was before we hopped on, about your triggers you didn't even know about. So the program that you're a part of right now, is it helping you to identify triggers that you've been unconsciously aware of by chance?
A little bit, yeah. Like one of the things we're going through right now, and it's also in the secular programs, is resentments that we hold on to.
Okay.
And by going through that, I'm starting to realize things that trigger me and what lies behind them.
Okay.
And many of it comes from different books I've read and things like that from the past too, and just seeking out information. You have to be a seeker in order to come across this, and I think that's one of the challenges is, especially for men, like I've been saying, is we're not taught to do that. And I don't want to discount women, because there's just many women that need to know this as well.
Right.
And as you said, we need to rise together. We need
Yes.
to rise up. We need to be able to. I think I spoke to you. I think it was on Instagram. Individualism is
Yes.
such a thing that's happening in the world, and we're talking about individualism and like just do you and all that stuff, and like that's all good. Like I'm all for obviously self-development and self-respect, and and being yourself and being better.
I had
But
wrote that down actually because I thought that was really, that stood out to me because I am a person who is very okay with diving deep and being alone, because I'm not alone. I'm very connected to the people that I'm growing and learning through. However, I feel like there needs to be a balance of having that individual self-care moment and then realizing, hey, like I'm here to be of service. What is my purpose? Who am I helping? Am I being, XYZ? And yeah, I feel like the whole, just as a whole, we've kind of become very like separate, like you said, the
yeah,
individualism. And I'm it's weird because I feel like I live in two worlds, because there's this aspect of my world where a lot of the people I associate myself with are very much into what we're talking about to bring forth a better world. But then I also do see other individuals who aren't using these tools or don't even know about them. And it's
yeah,
sad because, I've been in both worlds, and it's still, I sometimes fluctuate because I don't always maybe, we don't always see our blind spots, but,
yeah,
you know,
totally.
and we need that. It's the bottom line is we need that support. And I really I feel like we're just at this pivotal moment right now where we really need that masculinity to like hone in and heal and release those traumas in order to be the divine masculine for the divine feminine, and as the divine feminine for the divine masculine.
Absolutely. And something I'll say on that is, what often happens in relationships, where men lose themselves or lose their masculinity, then the woman has to step up and step into her masculine.
Yep.
And it ultimately makes the man feel even worse because they
Yep.
feel disrespected. And the way that men feel love is they feel it's respect.
Right.
And when we don't feel respect, we don't feel loved, and it kind of starts to turn into a lot of different feelings for us, anger, resentment, and different things, and a lot of things can happen. And one of the things that helps men stay in their masculinity, and being that alpha male and being that masculine, that I think, even a lot of the women out there that are crying for like just do you, and that individual spirit, are really looking for a man that's willing to be that masculine. They want to be submissive to that, in that sense. And the challenge is that when, I mean, we could go into a lot of different reasons why that's happening in society, but I'll stay on topic here. One of the things that men can do to stay into that is to have a community around them. And when I say community, just like you and I were talking before, it's not going out and getting drunk with the boys, like, and then, it's 3, 4 in the morning. It's having healthy relationships and doing things. And yes, self-care is important, but it doesn't need to be all day.
Yeah,
exactly. Taking an hour, 2 hours a day, getting up earlier, going to bed on time, having self-discipline.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons why I feel so much happier with myself these days.
Wow.
Is because I started to really set boundaries for myself where I wasn't before. I was personally, I was isolating myself. I wasn't in the community. I wasn't the relationships I was having weren't necessarily the healthiest ones. And what I mean by that is you are the average of the 5 people that you hang around or talk to or whatever the most. And let's say right now, you don't necessarily have the best relationships, or you're looking around at your friends and they're all broke, or they're all they do every weekend or every night is they go out to the bar. Maybe that's not what you want for yourself, and maybe you should start to distance yourself. And I'm not saying, get rid of your friends, because that was one of the hardest things that I had. For me was, like some of my friends I've had for decades. And, so that's one of the things that's difficult to do. And what I'm saying is some people you should, I used to listen to this guy, or still do today, Jim Rohn. And I know you're familiar with him. And he says, some people you need to spend an hour with a week, and some people you should spend 5 minutes with. It really just depends. And what I mean is like, are they raising you up? Are they helping you become a better man or a better woman? Are they helping you? And you need that community around you. And I think one of the things that's really helped me start to really work on myself and do these things, like I said earlier, making my bed in the morning. That's something I haven't done, since my mom was yelling at me about it when I was a kid, and as silly as that sounds, like, it just feels good to get that done in the morning. I read a devotion book every morning, and just get a little something to start off the day. I've recently written affirmations on my mirror.
Love it.
So I read them in the morning. I also have a prayer on the mirror, and so every single morning I'm speaking that into existence, and our words really make a big difference. But having a community that supports that and pushes the positivity in your life, because we really can't change the no's. The negativity is out there. There's not really anything we can do about that. But if you can really add on to the positivity, and I don't mean just listening to things, just reading books, you have to have the action too, and we can fall in and out of it at times, but setting a schedule for yourself, it's not in my nature at all to follow a schedule. I've known this for years, like schedule, make a list, whatever. And I've actually come to love it. And I'm still having my own struggles with it, but becoming that, and like, people like somebody who's got their stuff together. I was gonna say another word, but so people like that. People like people that have their stuff together. And the big thing is not just for what other people like, it's really about yourself. When you can start to learn that I'm a person that trusts myself to do what I say when I do that, especially as a man, like we have to know our word means what it says it is. And when we don't, we really start to feel like down on ourselves. And you may not realize it consciously, but subconsciously it's really eating away at you. And that might be why you're in a bad mood today.
Absolutely.
And that might be why your day didn't go the way as planned. And not everything's going to work out perfectly. And I'm still in a desert myself, you know, going through this, but there is a promise at the end of it, you know. And what's happening is the more that this does that, the more I'm starting to see positivity and showing up in my life and things like that. And the more it happens, the better I feel, and the more that I, you know, do what I say I'm going to do, and keeping my word, and doing those things, like the more that I feel better. And men really need this, and wanting to, but having that community of brothers that really helps you step into that, and ultimately you can be the man that your woman's looking for.
That's so
Yeah.
beautifully said, Chris. I feel like you've been through so much, and I mean, we could sit here and talk all day about it, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day, like you said, setting those boundaries.
Maybe 2 days.
2 days, probably longer.
I'm just kidding.
We'll save that
I'm
for
just
the
kidding. It's not that bad.
But
Somebody shed a tear for me, but I'm just
aw.
kidding. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Well, the boundaries, you know, it starts with, you know, like how you treat yourself is very important. You know, essentially is what you're saying, and having that integrity with yourself first, and setting those boundaries, knowing your core values and what it is you're willing, you know, just knowing yourself enough to know this isn't right, this isn't good, I need to shift this a little, and take those little actions. And in some cases, you need to go back to the basics, like you're saying, make your bed every day, do these things that they seem silly, but they're not. They're very, it's like, I don't know, if you didn't brush your teeth every day over a period of time, eventually you're going to have some
Yeah,
issues. So just being
absolutely. Yeah.
simple to
You're gonna find everyone
it.
wants to stay away from you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm so proud of you, Chris. You've come so far. Like I've
Thank you.
seen so many versions of you, and I recently wrote a post about this actually, on my Instagram, about how every day I wake up I'm a different woman, because it's like a birth and it's like a death and a rebirth, because there's different versions of ourselves that we're peeling back, and we're learning about who we are, and all we can do is become better once we get to, you know, once you get to the core and you have like that connection with your soul, you're unstoppable. And you're at a place where you speak so eloquently because you've been there, you've done that, you're growing through that, and you're going to be still growing, and it's just a matter of time. Like I was telling you before, I could see you leading, like a brotherhood type of event, or you know, maybe even with the church, or and you're so well spoken, so I see nothing but good things for you coming. And I know I said that before we got started. Super proud of you. I'm so happy to have you as a representation for the divine masculine here and our brotherhood. I don't really want to cut us off. I don't know how much time you have, but is there anything else you would like to share with everyone about anything that you feel, words of wisdom that you can give to our brothers?
Yeah. As I said before, seek it out. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Stop blaming. I mean, one of the things that's really important is the story we tell ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I had a good friend of mine. I've heard this many times, but most recently we had two conversations. Once before my wife left, and another after, and it was the same conversation actually. And what he told me was, the story you tell yourself is important. And what he meant by that is, if you have a choice, you can either decide in a moment the story that you tell yourself is, it either could hurt you or help you. And so one of the things that's really key is your perspective. So at first I was in this, when this happened, the story I was telling myself is like, why is this happening again? You know, I had lived with a woman before me and my wife met, and we, you know, I was in a relationship for 4 years prior to that, and we were living together for at least 3 of those 4 years, and I thought I was going to marry her, and then it didn't work out, and that was, and then 6 years before that, I was also in a relationship for about 4 years, and it didn't work out. And what I started to realize is I kept telling myself the same old story of, you know, a woe is me story and this sad story. And so when I was in this mess recently, I was telling myself, like, why me? Why me? You know, why did she do this? Why did she do that? Why did she do this? And I'll tell you, earlier today, I started to realize I'm really grateful, in the sense that, you know, I'm happy that she walked away because I wouldn't have found myself again.
Aw.
And what I mean by that is, you know, I actually miss her dearly, but you know, what's important is that I don't know that I would have gone down this journey without that.
Right. Yeah.
And I love that I had someone walk away so that I could love myself again. And
Oh,
that's so important, to tell yourself stories that matter the most.
yeah.
Because the more you tell yourself a story that is not helping you, and we could get into this, but the choice that you make, the decisions you make, you know,
Right.
when someone leaves you, you can decide what that means for you,
Right.
you know. and
Yeah.
and I think I looked at, I had two roads I could walk down. I could walk down, you know, my old ways and the things that I had done before and all these different things, and I could burn my house down, basically, you know, and be
Yeah.
self-destructive, and you know, and guess where that load leads? Right back to where I am today. And
Right.
it just, you know, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Or I could just stop pointing fingers and stop blaming and stop looking at everybody else and stop saying, like, woe is me. And I could really look at myself and decide, how do I want to live my life? What
Right.
do I want out of this? And
Yeah.
I decided what I needed and what I wanted. And like I said, that was joining a community. And I think these are really big things, you know. First, decide what you want, obviously, you know. Join after that. After you decide what you want, figure out what steps it's going to take to get there. Join a community of people that are going to be that are heading in that direction. You know, if you want to be successful in business, you want to be successful in real estate, you want to be successful at your job, even, you know, don't hang around with the people that are just hanging out in the break room all the time. You know, like, it's not going to really help, you know. So you gotta figure out what you want and surround yourself with people that are doing that also, because what you feed your mind, what you hear, and what you speak and what you say are all very important. And
Right.
one of the things that I think is also ultimately important is finding some kind of spirituality, whatever that is for you. You need to have meaning in your life and meaning beyond you. And if you don't have any kind of spirituality, then you're going to find yourself always searching for something.
Right.
And rather than knowing that you feel grounded in your situation, no matter what it is. So yeah, that's
Wow.
it.
I just want to clap. You know what, Chris,
Thank you.
I am so happy for you. You've, like I said, you've always been very intelligent and been very in tune with this kind of stuff. But I feel like the depth of which you've had to go to get to where you are, you're gonna bless and bring so much to so many people. So I just want to honor your journey and thank you for what you're doing for all the divine masculine out there. I think you're about to, you know, really step into your empowerment, and you already have. And it's been so amazing. You've given some great information tonight, full of wisdom through your own experiences, and the vulnerability to share that. Honestly, just hands down commend you for that. It's so like, it like touches me. That's why I reached out to Chris, because I was like, wow, this is good. I want to see this, because I don't want men living in pain anymore. I don't want them to suffer, because I personally, as a woman, know what that feels like too. I'm human. And
Right.
this is that time. We need as many men to step forth and say, hey, like, what can I do? And so anyone who's listening, I will be sure to link all of Chris's information if you maybe want to reach out to him, or if you need some resources, we'll be happy to help you, as long as you're willing to, you know, do the work yourself. I feel like you'll be unstoppable, and there's a lot of women out there waiting for you.
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
thank you so much for having me on, Danielle. I really
yeah,
appreciate it. It's been so fun. So thank you so
absolutely.
much.
It's
Yeah,
been
I really
fun.
enjoyed this.
We'll
Yeah,
have to do this again sometime. If I want to see
absolutely.
your transformation in the next year or 6 months and see what happens. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, all the best to you, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you.